We have other people will be checking in, and people will be kind of coming and going as we do this event this morning. So thank you very much for coming this morning. And by the way, for those of you who are still standing in line, before we get started, I wanted to say, I know there's a lot of angst and anxiety right now in Detroit. So I'm bringing good vibes coming out of the chute this morning, all right? Why? Because I have my Detroit Pistons mug. And I want you to know that tonight, we're going to definitely do it, all right? I have no doubt, as I like to call my boys, the bad boys, 2.0, Detroit Pistons, in fact, will do it, all right? So I want to make sure I send those positive vibes. So all of you who know me know I'm a huge Detroit sports fan. Probably the biggest thing is I live and die by every one of our sports teams, and I literally live and die by them. So tonight, no text messages, no phone calls. Leave me alone. Although I'm supposed to be back on TV tonight doing the 10 o'clock news, so I'll figure that one out. All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 12th Annual Small Business Workshop. And my name is Mark S. Lee, and I'm the president and CEO of the Lee Group. And I want to thank each of you for joining us this morning at the Corner Ballpark. And by the way, this is a historical facility. This is where the Detroit Tigers played from 1901 to 1999. And every time I come here, there's so many memories for me. I was telling somebody earlier this morning, real quick, is I literally came here to the 1968 World Series. I sat in right field as a young kid. And I came here in 1999 for the second from last home game that the Tigers played the Kansas City Royals. I was living in Chicago, brought my kids over, and we sat right over there where it says K-Line's Corner. So every time I come here, it's an emotional experience for me. Again, as I mentioned, I'm a huge Detroit Tigers fan. And I was also here for the groundbreaking of this great facility. And so lastly, if you look out, you see the center field flag out there, the pole. That is the original flagpole from Tiger Stadium. A little bit of historical context for you. All right, so whether you're a longtime business owner, a nonprofit leader, or a startup founder, a corporate partner, or someone who's still shaping your next big idea, you are in fact in the right place. And this year's theme is Resilient by Design, Innovating Through Disruption. And in a world where change is constant, resilience cannot be accidental. It must be designed. That means building systems, relationships, habits, and strategies that allow us not only to respond to disruption, but to grow through it. And disruption can come in many forms in terms of economic pressure, technology shifts, workforce challenges, cybersecurity threats, access to capital, changing customer expectations, and the everyday realities of simply running a business. It's tough out here. It's tough out here. And we're going through challenging times right now. And so, but this disruption, if I could talk, can also reveal itself as opportunities. I stand before you as one of you. I started my business 18 years ago in 2008, and I'll share my personal journey a little bit later. In 2008, in the height of the recession, if you remember Detroit in 2008, it was a depression. The country said it was a recession, but it was a depression here. And I started my business 18 years ago. So imagine all the changes I've had to go through, all the disruption I've had to go through, and the evolution. So it can push us to become smarter, serve better, collaborate differently, and build organizations that last. And we know that Detroit, does understand resilience. This city has always been known how to adapt, rebuild, innovate, and move forward. And today it's about bringing that same spirit of our businesses, our nonprofits, and our leadership. And our goal is for you to leave here with useful ideas. Leave here with useful ideas. So when you walk away, there's one or two things that you can, in fact, implement effective immediately. And also, while you're here, make connections. Make connections. Talk to people, right? This can become your informal network that we all need to be successful. So I encourage you to listen, ask questions, introduce yourselves to anyone, everyone who's here, and see yourself as part of a strong, resourceful, and resilient small business community. That being here in the great city of Detroit, which is my hometown. I also like to say I was born about 2 miles. I have one trivia question. I do a lot of public speaking in Detroit. Nobody can answer this question. But I was born at the original Providence Hospital. And people say the original Providence Hospital, they think it's in Southfield. Anybody know where the original Providence Hospital was? Outer Drive, not quite. That would have been Mount Sinai and Mount Carmel. All right, the original Providence Hospital, right up the street from the Motown Museum, on the corner of Grand River and 14th Street, on the southeast corner. And there's an apartment complex here right now. It's called the Young Apartment Complex. So it's right between Northwestern High School and the Motown Museum. And I was born there, and I like to tell the story at the original Providence Hospital. And I lived in my first few years near Central High School before moving out towards Northwest Detroit. So I stand before you as a Detroiter. All right, so what I'd like to say at this point, we want to acknowledge our sponsors. So without them, this event and other events that we do throughout the course of the year, we certainly cannot do this. So please join me in thanking the Detroit Development Fund, First Independence Bank, Huntington Bank, Comerica Bank, which is a division now of Fifth Third Bank, Kinetic, Michigan Black Business Alliance, BBB of Michigan, Watchdog Cyber, Z-Bar International Corporation, Nuvo Cabinets and Countertops, Michigan Women Forward, Tanner Freeman, and Cindy Fletcher, State Farm Agent out of Plymouth, Michigan. We also want to thank our media partners, the Detroit Free Press, the Detroit PBS, by the which I'm a very proud member of the board of Detroit PBS and appreciate all that they do. The Latino Press, outstanding publication in Southwest Detroit, the largest press of Hispanic descent in the state of Michigan, and the Michigan Chronicle. And I'm pleased to announce that I'm also a contributing columnist. I write a column for the Michigan Chronicle called Money Matters. So please give all of our sponsors, partners, and media partners a round of applause. And just a few housekeeping details here before we move forward. The restrooms are located just outside these doors over here to my right, to your left, and breakfast will remain available during the opening portion of the program. And we encourage you also to silence your phones. I'm also a professor. I teach at Eastern Michigan University, Medina University, and Northwood, and my students will say, when Professor Lee, we have a 10 o'clock class, when Professor Lee says, we start at 10 o'clock, although we're starting a couple minutes late because of traffic and everything else, the first thing my students do is they turn off their phones. They silence their phones. And what I tell them is that you are my customer. You come to hear me lecture to teach you, not to come in for you to be on your cell phone. And so as the semester progresses, the students, it's amazing how the whole transformation takes place. And they know if I catch them on their cell phone, you know, I can be a tough professor and I'm darn proud of it. I'm very proud of it. That significant number of points are in fact deducted. And they all would tell you that. And so for this morning, you know, we respect you, we love you, we appreciate you coming. So, you know, just try to silence your phones. I know we're all guilty. I'm guilty as well. So thank you very much for respecting that as well. All right, we will have time for questions at the end of this morning as well. And again, we encourage you to connect with everyone who's here. Feel free to help yourself for breakfast at any point in time. All right, we have special welcome remarks from the City of Detroit. And I'd like to welcome Dr. Margot Renscher. And she's an entrepreneur, anthropologist, and educator with 3 decades of experience in startup and small business development. And she's the Chief of Neighborhood Economic Development and Small Business for the City of Detroit as part of Mayor Sheffield's administration. And she has over 3 years of experience helping startups and small businesses. And previously, she was the president of Detroit Means Business, which champions and supports Detroit businesses. And Dr. Renscher earned her undergraduate degree from Michigan State University. All right, go ahead and say it. All right. Although I'm a Michigan fan. All right, go. All right. We go to our institutions. And she has an MBA from the University of Michigan and a PhD in business anthropology from Wayne State University. And she frequently speaks on technology, entrepreneurship, and inclusion. And check this out. She's been a presenter at TEDx Detroit, Harvard, Princeton, and SX by Southwest, SX Southwest, I should say. Please welcome Dr. Margot Renscher.
Good morning. I want to start with gratitude on behalf of Mayor Sheffield, on behalf of the residents of the city, and on my own behalf. To Mark Lee, thank you Organizing a room like this takes more than logistics. It takes belief. Belief that bringing the right people together at the right moment, around the right questions, actually changes what happens next in this city. We don't take that lightly. Mayor Sheffield is grateful, and so am I. And to each of you in this room, thank you for being here. You are small business owners. You showed up, which means somewhere between opening your doors this morning and getting here, you made a choice to invest time in building something better. The mayor sees that, the city sees that, and this administration is here because of people like you. My name is Dr. Marlo Rencher. I serve as Detroit's Chief of Neighborhood Economic Development and Small Business, which is a long title that means one thing practically. I sit inside city government, and my job is to make sure that the systems that touch your businesses are designed around your needs. Mayor Sheffield asked me to bring her greetings together, and I want to be clear that to her, being represented here is not protocol, it's a signal. This administration has made a decision that supporting small businesses is a priority for the city. So let me tell you what that looks like in practice. In her first 100 days, Mayor Sheffield has moved with intention and with dollars behind it. $2.5 million reinvested in Motor City Match, the program that has been one of the most concrete tools that we have for launching and growing businesses across the city. The impact of Motor City Match has been felt in every district. It has supported all types of businesses. The Detroit Legacy Business Project has dollars designed specifically for businesses that have been operating in Detroit for 30 years or more. The places that stayed, the owners that held the block when everyone else left. That investment is a recognition that longevity is its own form of innovation. The Small Business Technology Fund, which we developed because we are not going to let Detroit's entrepreneurs fall behind on AI tools and hardware upgrades while the rest of the world accelerates. Technology should not be a luxury available only to the businesses with capital to spare. The Detroit Startup Fund, with grants between $15,000 and $50,000 for founders working on safety, logistics, technology, and other sectors. Meaningful capital at the stage where it is most rare and most needed. A new director of retail attraction, which is being vetted right now. Because neighborhoods in Detroit don't just need programs, they need foot traffic, anchors, and commercial corridors that feel alive. That position exists to recruit national and local retailers into neighborhoods and not just downtown. And walk-in Wednesdays and Detroit district business liaisons, because sometimes what an entrepreneur really needs is a door that's open and a person, a human, who can actually help them navigate what the city government offers. This is what a pro-business stance looks like when it's designed so that neighborhood residents can feel it. Now, the theme of this workshop is resilient by design. And I want to stay with that word for just a moment, design. Because here's what I've learned in 30 years of this work. Resilience that is accidental is really just survival. And survival is a function of the individual. It depends entirely on how hard you push, how long you last, how much you can absorb before you break. But thriving, that's a function of the environment. The most resilient organizations in this room are not resilient because of willpower alone. They are resilient because at some point, through intention or necessity, they built something, a system, a process, a relationship structure that held when everything else shifted. That is design, and that is what this administration is committed to building alongside you. Not just programs that ask you to work harder, but we're building an ecosystem, the network of organizations, policies, and infrastructure that makes it possible for you to start, grow, and sustain business in the city that is actually designed around what you need to thrive, not just survive. You're going to hear a lot today about technology, about data, about navigating uncertainty, and all of it matters. And I want you to take it seriously. But I also want you to leave here today knowing that inside City Hall, there's a mayor who is actively rebuilding the environment that surrounds your business, who has appointed people inside government whose job is to answer to you, who's putting real money behind the idea that Detroit small businesses are not a charity case. They are the economic engine of this city's neighborhoods. The work you do today is not separate from that. It's part of the same design. Welcome to Resilient by Design. Now let's build something. Thank you.
Thank you, Margot. I've known her for years. She is an awesome person, awesome leader, and she's done some wonderful things here at the great city of Detroit. I'm going to put it in perspective for you. We have over 60,000 businesses, small businesses. I've written about it. I wrote for Cranes for 10 years, as a lot of you may know. Like I said, I'm writing for the Michigan Chronicle. I contribute to many, many media outlets here in Detroit, but I love to use the statistic. The great city of Detroit, going back to 2012, and that was the most recent data at the point in time, there are over 60,000 small businesses in the great city of Detroit. I'm not talking about out to Macomb County, across Wayne County, Oakland. I'm about from downtown to 8 Mile, from Telegraph over the grass shit. Let that number sink in, 60,000. In terms of the number of businesses, we're the fourth largest city in terms of volume. Now you multiply that by one employee, upwards to 2 to 3 employees. You're talking close to 200,000 people employed. So when Dr. Rencher says this is the economic backbone, not just of Detroit, but across the country, what people don't realize is, in the great city and across this great country of ours, that 80 to 90% of the net new jobs are created by entrepreneurs, by small businesses. Yes, we love General Motors. We love Stellantis. I still want to say Chrysler, I apologize. We love Ford. We love our big companies. All this development that's taking place downtown. But it's people like you, people like me, who are out there at the grassroots level each and every single day, employing people, paying bills, offering the tax base. So Dr. Rencher talks about resilient by design, innovating through disruption. So what I'm going to do is, we're in this great facility, is I want to spend a few moments to give you my perspective and tell you a personal journey. But before I do that, I want to thank Detroit PAL for what they have done, and certainly hosting this workshop. This is a place that represents community, youth development, athletics, leadership, and opportunity. And this venue carries a special place in our city's history, and it serves as the perfect backdrop for a conversation based on a conversation that we're going to have today. And so when we think about Detroit PAL, I was involved in Detroit PAL. I was actually involved with the very first executive director. His name was Dick Night Train Lane. For those of you who are from Detroit, if you're a Lions fan, he was a Hall of Famer. Was the very first executive director for Detroit PAL. He and I went to the same church together. I was a young kid, well, I was too young, but we were an ushering team together. And I used to sit there and say, Mr. Lane, what is that big ring on your finger? It was from the 1957 NFL Championship Detroit Lions. The last year that I say we as a city, won the NFL championship. He was married to a very famous singer. So those of you who are native Detroiters, and I'm just drawing a blank right now, she was a famous jazz singer, you can Google it. And he became a dear friend for my family. And Dick Night Train Lane was a legend, and he was the very first executive director of this great organization of Detroit PAL. So for me to stand here is truly a humbling experience. For me to see the development of Detroit PAL, and my dear friend over here, Jay Alexander, has worked for Detroit PAL. He's now, and by the way, if you want to meet him, he's now in charge of all, Jay, if you don't mind standing up, he's now in charge of all of athletics for DPS. He runs the sports program for Detroit Public Schools, Community District. And he is very much involved with PAL, and I appreciate him so much. So thank you, Detroit PAL. So what I want to do, and for a lot of you who have seen me speak, You know, sometimes I use a microphone, sometimes I don't. I have a lot of nervous energy. So you're gonna start seeing me walk around. I'm gonna take a few minutes. And I've been doing a lot of interviews about this workshop over the last several days. I thank all of our media partners, all the outlets here in Detroit. And someone asked me a question recently. They said, and also I contribute, by the way, on WDET. I have a monthly, I contribute to the Metro. And they asked me a question. They said, Mark, we understand you're also an inspirational speaker. You're a motivational speaker. I said, actually, I am. I do. So what you're going to see right now is exactly how I teach my classroom. It's exactly what my students see when I walk into the classroom at Eastern Michigan University. And Madonna, in Northwood, which is, if you're from Detroit, we talk with our hands. So Madonna's up here, Northwood's up here. I've never been on campus. But I teach that class 100% online. And what you see marked through videos, what you're going to see right now. So what I want to do is take time and give you a personal journey about resilience and why resilience is important. But I want to tell you through my eyes, as a Detroiter, as a business owner. I have lived in 9 different cities across this country with my first few years. But let me tell you about the significance of transition that I think has worked for Detroit. We did a special 1 year ago about the train station. They asked me to sit down and share my family's history about the train station and my connection to this train station. Thank you. Here's the connection, and it's personal, and it's deep. As a young kid, I came to Tiger Stadium. I would go to the train station, get ice cream. As a young kid, right over here, that train station that you now see. Many of you know I'm a son of a banker. My dad was a legendary banker here in Detroit. Not many people know he helped to start the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation with Mayor Coleman Young. My dad came up to Detroit from Huntington, West Virginia. My mom from Ashland, Kentucky. So yes, I have Southern roots. My dad had 2 degrees by the time he was 20 years old. 20, young African American. Everybody was migrating to Detroit as part of the Great Migration, which was a series conducted by Detroit PBS. So the story I'll share was this. My dad met my mom. He says, Jean, that's her name. She's still around, still alive. I lost my dad years ago, 2015. He says, we're going to go to Detroit, but you can't go yet because I got to go up there and find a job. So as he left, they were going to stop in Indianapolis, Indiana. No disrespect to Indianapolis. My dad says, we're going to go to Detroit because that's what everyone is migrating to. He came up here, found a job at a bank called the National Bank of Detroit, MBD Bank. In 1957, as a young African-American, light-skinned African-American, yes, I'm light-skinned, they put him on the front lines of the bank as a light-skinned banker. Because he was going on as a light-skinned banker, he was non-threatening to white people. Let that sink in. It's about disruption, resilience. Dad got up on the line. He did his job respectfully every single day, to the point where Caucasians would come in and stare at him and say, you're not black. Let that sink in 1957. He withstood. He had resilience. And my father, over a 42-year career, became the highest-ranking black banker in the country, the highest-ranking black banker in the city of Detroit, mentored hundreds of people across this country. Resilience by design. I learned from him. He used to tell me, son, he always called me son. He would say, son, I want you to reach back and help other people. No matter how successful you think you might be, you reach back and help others. This is why I do this workshop. It's my gift to the city of Detroit. It's my way of saying this is important, not for the city, but just for the entire state of Michigan. And I want to tell you another story about that train station so we can kind of connect the dots. My dad got a job, finally called my mother in Ashland, Kentucky, and said, Gene, get on that train. And she caught the train from Kentucky and got off at the train station. That is my family's history of going from Ashland, Kentucky, and Huntington, West Virginia, to the big city. And when she got off the train at the train station, they went downtown. My mom stood at the corner of Woodward and Griswold. And she looked up. She said, wow, look at these big buildings. And she stood at the Penobscot building. This is 1957. And my dad says, welcome to the big city. I wish my mom to this day is still here, thank gosh. And my family has a commitment to this city. So I'm going to tell you another story. That's the story about the train station. I'm going to use this phrase. She sat down so we could stand up. She sat down so we could stand up. I tell this story to my students at Eastern Michigan University, all my students actually. You can hear a pin drop. I'm often asked to talk to incoming student athletes. I'm a former student athlete. Hair, a little skinnier. I ran track at Eastern Michigan. We won the MAC every year. Yes, I'm proud to say that, not because of me. But as a 21-year-old, I was also student body president. Only time in Eastern's history where you had a black student body president and a black university president, Dr. John Porter, who became the superintendent of Detroit Public Schools. As a 21-year-old, I'm standing on the stage, and my knees are just shaking, literally. I'm holding the podium so tight, you can see my veins pop out. I said, Bart, where are you going with this? She sat down so we can all stand up. I had the opportunity of having one-on-one conversations, lunch with the late, great Mrs. Rosa Parks. Let that sink in as a 21-year-old. And I'm sitting on the stage at Eastern Michigan Pease Auditorium, which is still there. I leaned over to Mrs. Parks, and she told me her story. And the story that she told me is basically what I read in the history books. And I said, Mrs. Parks, why did you do it? I'm thinking she's tired, but she was a seamstress. And she says, Mark. I said, oh my gosh. She said my name. The mother of the civil rights movement tells me the story of how she met Dr. King. She told me the story that I was tired. I said, you were tired from? She said, no, I was tired. And it clicked. She was tired. No more than this tall, Mrs. Parks. And so eventually, I told my students this story, a diverse group of students, and I say to them, she stood up, she sat down, so we can all stand up. And that one moment of interaction with Mrs. Parks changed my life. It changed my life. And God has blessed me in a lot of ways. So let me take that connection between my dad and Mrs. Rosa Parks and talk about resiliency through my lens, through my eyes. So I got my degrees. I got multi-degrees. I was flying high in corporate America. My dad was a trailblazer in the banking industry. I was a trailblazer in corporate. I had almost the exact same path as he did, except I was the banker. I refused to go into that industry because I knew that he had a long shadow. And I wanted to carve out my own leadership. So I decided to work in marketing. And when I got jobs in marketing, I started at the entry-level marketing positions, worked my way up to chief marketing officer, EVP, for major organizations, well-known brands that you have heard of. I always generate the highest African-American banker, that's just my dad, highest ranking marketing person in the entire corporation. I was flying on corporate jets. I have a championship ring for the Miami Heat because I negotiated business deals when I lived in Jacksonville, Florida. But then one day, as I'm flying high, right, I got a phone call. He said, Mark, we want you to move to St. Louis or Dallas. And I said, no disrespect to those two cities. I have no interest in doing it. I'm home. I'm tired of moving. I lived in New York, Chicago, Detroit, Philadelphia, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Jacksonville, Florida, Wichita, Kansas. I always missed a city somewhere along the way. I had a chance to move to Rio de Janeiro. Turned it down because I didn't want my kids to be relocated. I commuted between Chicago and Detroit, between Chicago and New York, between Detroit and Wichita, between Detroit and Jacksonville, Florida. You're talking about resiliency. So I walked. High-paying job. I'm making a ton of money. I'm flying with corporate jets. Like I said, I probably been parking at Metro. I go to Metro. I can tell you the last time I went through security. Met some of the most outstanding business leaders. So I decided to walk and start my own business. You actually walked and started your own business? Yeah. Best decision I made. Absolute best decision I made. So what I did was, the only problem with living in Michigan, it gets cold. So I played golf every day from July until it got cold. And everybody kept saying, Mark, you know what? You should start your own business. Oh, no, I have no interest. 4, I think next swing. Mark, you should start your own business. Nope, no interest. But you have enough connections. Nope, no interest. Eventually I did, because it got cold. So I started my business in January of '08. And as I mentioned, it was a recession. People were like, are you crazy? I had no clients, no resources outside my personal resources, no office, no phone, no nothing. And I took the leap. What do I do? And finally, I got my big break. I came up with a name, the Lead Group. That seems reasonable. Makes sense. One of my dear friends, rest his soul, one of my golfing buddies, some of you may know him, Mike Finney, at one time was the president of Michigan Economic Development Corporation, called me up one day, said, hey, I got this opportunity for you to do some consulting in Detroit. I said, really? Through your company. I said, great. And that was my first break. And I worked on a program still in existence to this day. In those days, it was called E200. It transformed itself into the Emerging Leaders Program. And myself, some of you may know Connie Logan, and Connie is with the Small Business Administration. We made Detroit #1 in the entire country of 17 cities. It was an executive-style, intense MBA program where I worked with CEOs of minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses. We were the bottom of the toll. But when I finished that son of a gun, along with Connie, we were #1 in the country. To the point we were invited across the country to speak. I said, I'm on to something. I'm on to something. So resilience. So when I started my business, Brian Watson and I had lunch the other day out in Northville, Michigan, and he asked me an interesting question. He says, when you started your business, did you think you'd be doing everything that you're doing today? I said, Brian, absolutely not. True story. I said, man, I started the Lead Group. I was going to do consulting, make some money. That's all I knew. What did that mean? I had no idea. 18 years later, not only do I do business consulting, right? It morphed into all my media opportunities. I'm always invited to provide my perspective on what's happening in Detroit from a business perspective. It has morphed itself into giving public speeches. I'm a keynote speaker tomorrow front of 400 people. It's morphed itself into me now. I'm proud to say that as of last week, I've been coaching for the last 5 years. Now I'm a certified professional coach. Well, you know, go ahead and clap. I see you want to clap. I had no interest in doing that. Then it's morphed into me mentoring young people over the years. My point is saying that somebody who just started consulting with small businesses, and people say, somebody said this morning, we see you everywhere, Mark, everywhere. I'm all over social media. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. You know why all this happened? Planning, evolution. When you talk about being resilient, you can't sit still. When I left corporate America, I could have just sat still. And someone told me that you have done a phenomenal job of reinventing yourself. If you had asked me, would I be a professor? Absolutely not. I love it. My students get on my nerves sometimes, but I love it because you're transforming a young person's mind. And to watch them transform themselves over 15 weeks is phenomenal. Gives me the greatest joy. It's no different than seeing you guys grow, starting your business, and watching you become successful. It inspires me. You guys inspire me. People have told me I inspire you. I don't inspire you. Maybe I do, I don't know. But you inspire yourselves. That's resiliency. You're on an island every day, each and every single day. It's tough, isn't it? Let me give you 3 numbers. 484, 3.6, and 3.8. 484 is the average gas price in the state of Michigan as of this morning. Gas prices for the consumer have gone up 40% in the last 3 weeks. 3.8 was just reported yesterday. Our economy has grown, that consumer spending, that inflation has grown 3.8% in April. 3.6. That's the average wage increase in the month of April. So let that sink in. Inflation, I'm not a mathematician, but inflation is at 3.8%. Wages have only increased 3.6%. Hello? What does that tell you? Your wages are not keeping up with inflation. This is the first time since June of 2022 we've experienced this. That is disruption. Now think about that impact on your business. We're going to be unpacking this starting with a panel discussion in a few moments. So you're running a business. The one question I always get is, Mark, in these uncertain times, what do I do? What do I do? Inflation is at 3.8%. And let me give you another fact. A lot of us think that the inflation is a direct result of tariffs. This is not a political conversation. Let me make it very clear. The tariffs have somewhat subsided a little bit in the economy. The American economy is resilient. What do you mean it's resilient, Mark? My costs are going up. Yeah, it is. It's resilient, but jobs are still being created. That's what I mean by resiliency. An economy that's not resilient means jobs are not being created. So last month, 115,000 jobs were created. Lower than expectations, although still growing, but a little bit lower than expectations. So when you think about all these dynamics, all these factors, you're all entrepreneurs, you're business owners, you're in nonprofit organizations. That creates uncertainty. And so as I begin to wrap up here, the beauty of disruption, it creates opportunity. So the way I got to where I am today is I've taken every challenge in my life. I've transformed it into an opportunity. I didn't even tell you that when I started my business, one day I opened up my checkbook. I was down to less than $100 in the bank. Not my personal resources. That I'm not concerned about. Business resources. And for the first time in my life, this successful person who got money all over the place, and I opened up my checkbook. Yes, some of us still use checkbooks. And I had less than $100 in the bank. I was like, wow. And remember, I'm a son of a banker. And my dad would have told me, hang tight, you're going to be all right. It's going to come together. And right after I checked that account is when that contract came through with the SBA in the city of Detroit. Stay resilient, people. My story is your story. I'm a young kid from the west side of Detroit who grew up in Detroit during the Motown sound. I grew up in Detroit. I was Aretha Franklin's paper boy. I grew up right up the street from Marvin Gaye. Paul Williams from the Temptations lived right around the corner from me. Paul Williams, he's the guy that says, "Dear Lord, hear my plea." That's Paul Williams. I can't sing. Gladys Knight lived over there, Palmer Woods and Sherwood Forest. These were our neighbors. Subi Sells lived around the corner. Used to come downtown here as a young kid. Fox Theater had the Motortown Review for 25 cents. You could see Stevie Wonder, Temptations. They were lined out in front of Fox Theater. The line would go parallel to the Fisher, right here. So I'm one of you. This is my town. This is my city. Everywhere I go across the country, when I speak, and I do a lot of public speaking, I make sure they say I'm from Detroit, Michigan. I don't say Wayne County. I don't say Michigan. I say Detroit, because Detroit to me is what made me. I'm a son of this city. I lived in Chicago for 12 years. I was that one bad boy who wore his bad boy's jacket in 1988-89. We played the Chicago Bulls. And literally had fans at Chicago Stadium try to threaten me. Say, "You're a Pistons fan?" I said, "You're darn right." And I stood up for Detroit. And that's who I am. So as I wrap up, I tell you my story. 2 words of wisdom, very simple. When you think about resiliency. 1, embrace the opportunities. It's so easy as entrepreneurs, we get frustrated. Embrace the opportunity. 2, don't be afraid. Don't do things recklessly, but don't be afraid. 3, have a plan. Everything I've done in my life, in my professional life, has been done with intent, intentionality. Number 4, this is what my dad taught me. Always surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. I don't have all the answers. I tell my students this. Your professor asks you a question, and you can't answer the question, just say what? What are you supposed to say? I don't know. But we've been conditioned to think I have to give you an answer. I respect someone who says, "I don't know." You know why? That means they're going to go back and do what? Get the information. The last thing I will say is intellectual curiosity. I read a ton. I don't read a lot of books. I don't have the patience. I got to jump to, just tell me the story, how it ends. But I read a lot. And I read a lot because I have intellectual curiosity. All right? So as I wrap up, I want to thank you for allowing me just to spend a few moments with you. And before we move into, can I start some jazz music for a second real quick, please? Real low. I'm going to do an exercise with you before we segue into our panel discussion. Remember, I'm a certified professional coach. Each day, we have so much noise in our head. The average attention span is 7 seconds of an adult. You hit with thousands of messages a day. That means we have clutter. Turn that music up a little bit. What I want you to do, take that phone, flip it over. I want you to take 3 minutes of your time. Folks at BBB have seen me do this before. This is a centering exercise. I do it with my students. I do it with clients. What I want you to do at this point is close your eyes. Just listen to my voice. Just listen to my voice. Stop what you're doing right now. Listen to that music. I want you to eliminate all the thoughts out of your head. At the top of your head, you feel that stress. Just let it go. As you go down to your forehead, and through your nose and through your mouth, you feel the stress. Just let it go. You drove down this morning on 96, on the Chrysler, the doggone traffic. Let it go. As you get down through your nose and your chin, your neck area, the tops of your shoulders, you feel that stress. Just let it go. Oh yeah. As you feel your arms, you feel that stress in your arms, all the way down to your fingertips. Let it go. Yeah, take a deep breath. Just listen to my voice. Yeah, you go back to your neck area, down to your chest, all the way down to your abs. Let it go. You're feeling a sense of relief. Oh man, relaxation. Just let it go. All of a sudden, you're down to your hips. You got that little sore spot. You walked too much yesterday. Your muscles are tight. Let it go. Man, your body's just feeling so cool right now. You're in your thighs, down to your kneecaps. Your legs are stressful. You're tired. You know what, people? Let it go. Yeah. And then, as you go all the way down through your shins, and your toe tips, and your toes, just let it go. On the count of 3, I want you to take a deep breath. 1, don't open your eyes yet. 2, 3. Inhale in, exhale out. In this moment, you are totally connected with yourself. No drama, no stress. This is the moment where for the next couple of hours, I want you just to listen, to embrace. Remember this moment. I do this virtually every day, by the way. Now, on the count of 5, I want you to open up your eyes and shake the person's hand next to you and say, I feel so good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Open your eyes and shake the person's hand. We can cut the music. Ladies and gentlemen, you have just been censored. All right. How you feel? All right. Awesome. Thank you very much. All right. So today's conversations will be practical and honest and forward-looking. And so right now what we want to do is to start with our very first panel discussion, if you will. And again, feel free to have coffee and make yourself comfortable. And the conversation here will be focused on navigating innovation through disruption. And we have a panel that will be coming up to join us. So I would like to introduce Ms. Tamara L. Jackson-Gatewood. And she's the Director of Lending for Michigan Women Forward. Tamara? Oh, there, come there. Thank you. Ray Waters, affectionately known as, I call him the mayor of entrepreneurship in Detroit. Ray Waters, Detroit Development Fund. We have an entrepreneur who's doing great things, Samantha Rosales, and she's the founder and CEO of Nuvo Cabinets and Countertops, headquartered here, Southwest. Thank you so much. And what we want to do is to really kind of kick things off is we're going to have each panelist will give a 60 or 90-second overview of themselves, their business, and really talk briefly about resilience and innovation, right? Resilience and innovation. And I'll ask a series of questions as well. So kind of sit back and enjoy the conversation. And what we want to do is we pull together a panel of people who can provide you with their insights based on their experiences. And so I want you to take notes, stay in that centered moment, stay totally focused, and make sure that you continue to learn. All right, so we're going to start with Tamara. I'm going to give you 60 to 90 seconds and talk about your work and how you're connected to resilience and innovation.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Tamara Jackson-Gatewood.
Okay, Tamara, my apologies.
It's all right, it could have gone either way. So Tamara Jackson-Gatewood, I work at Michigan Women Forward, work as the Director of Lending. And so in my role as a statewide CDFI or Community Development Financial Institution, the work that we do is provide business lending to entrepreneurs along with technical assistance. And with technical assistance, what that is resources, and that can look different for different businesses. It just depends on the type of support that business needs at that time, whether it's at the time of the loan or while the loan is in force, or it could be something that we might foresee that they may need even after the loan is done. And speaking of resilience and in speaking of being innovative, our mission and our role, it's incumbent on of us to make sure that we are doing our part just to make sure that small businesses are sustaining. And for us, sustaining is past year 5. So even after the loan is done, the type of work that we do goes beyond goes beyond capital. And so for us, that means that making sure that entrepreneurs go from employee to employer. And a lot of times that work is done within the technical assistance. So that could be bookkeeping, that could be accounting, that could be pairing up with some legal assistance. Sometimes that could be understanding people in HR. It just depends on what they need. So we'd like to think that that in and of itself does its part. So.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Ray Waters, 60 to 90 seconds, overview, and then talk about that connectivity of the organization to resilience and innovation.
We are the Detroit Development Fund, and like the Michigan Women's Forward, we are a certified development financial institution that has been in Detroit now for 25 years. Our goal is what theirs is, and that's there are several CDFIs in the state and in Detroit, and our goal specifically here at Detroit Development Fund is to provide that capital needed by small businesses that aren't able to get bank financing. And we can do loans from $500,000 to $250,000. But that's not the most important thing. The most important thing that we do is exactly what Tamara said. We provide access to other things for small businesses that help them grow. That's the technical assistance that some of them need to get ready for a loan, to the technical assistance they need after we give them the loan. And that could be, as Tamara pointed out, a variety of things. We provide them with technical assistance in accounting, in marketing. And in this day and age, as you're looking at what you're doing and trying to be resilient, the marketing that you do and how you do it and who you reach is a critical piece of growing your business. One of the things I was thinking about when I was driving in is that disruption is not an exception these days. It's the way it is. It's operating now, disruption all the time. How do you get through it? And that's what we try to do, is help you do that.
And Martha, you're an entrepreneur. Same thing. Give us an overview of your business and talk about resilience and innovation from your perspective. You've gone through a lot as an entrepreneur.
Yes, indeed, Mark. Hello, good morning, everybody. My name is Marta Rosales. I'm the owner of Nuvo Cabinets and Countertops. I started my business in 2022, and well, I'm the face of resilience, really, because I started my business with nothing. I didn't have connections. I didn't have money. I didn't have absolutely anything. The only thing that I had was the knowledge and the grit, well, I didn't have any other choice. It was my only choice. My husband passed away, and for many reasons, I ended with nothing. No savings. I didn't have a job. I never worked. I went in Mexico, I went to college, but I never had the opportunity to work in my field. So I didn't have absolutely anything. The day that I decided that I was going to start a business, it was because I didn't have any other choice. I was thinking, what I gonna do? Where can I apply? Who is gonna hire me with no experience, with nothing, no connection? So I started thinking, what can I do? And I'm related to innovation because I had to think out of the box. I had to adapt of my circumstances, and even I didn't have anything, I had to find something to do it.
And one thing I'll say about Martha, one of the first things she did was she actually came to the workshop.
Yes.
I remember when she came, and she reached out to me afterwards. And not only did she come to the workshop, and I was tracking her through social media, she actually asked if she could become a sponsor. How cool is that? How cool is that?
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's continue this phrase. Let's just continue about resilient by design. When you hear that phrase, what does that mean to you? Whoever wants to jump right in. Tamara, we'll start with you. What does that mean to you, resilient by design?
I think that resilience by design is being intentional with making some very specific steps to ensure that, from an entrepreneur's perspective, that that the work that you do is set to is set to chart a course that will be long lasting. What I would say too is it doesn't have to be anything that has to be something that is huge, right? Sometimes being resilient by design is making small steps, and what I mean by that is it could certainly be something within your business model or your framework that could just be making a small change within your plan. It could be something that changes the type of customer service that a person gives. It doesn't have to necessarily change your budget to a certain extent. It could just be taking a logical approach to ensuring that that your design and your model can withstand no matter who's in office, no matter what the economy looks like. It's just something that can just be foolproof and stand the test of time. So.
Absolutely. Ray or Martha, jump right in.
For me, resilience by design is, well, the definition is to adapt and recover and bounce back. That's what I did. I spent days and days in my bed, on my knees, like crying and not knowing what to do. Because for me, I don't have family here. It's only me and my 3 kids. So I didn't have somebody to maybe ask for help or anything. So I had to adapt to recover of my situation after my husband passed away. after I ended with nothing, and to bounce back. So for me, resilience by design is being on your knees, crying in the middle of your kitchen, stand up, and one day stand up and say, this ends today. This needs to change. So I started my business. When I decided that I was going to start a business, I didn't have money. I didn't have any money on my pocket. I even have a debt with the bank because my account was overdrawn. So I went from minus $99 to six figures business in 7 months. I had to do it.
You know, I heard vulnerability. I heard you say you have vulnerability, you cry, you know, and that's awesome. And thank you for sharing and opening up. Ray?
So what I hear here and what you're hearing is what's the critical piece of being a business owner? Tenacity. It's incredible, that story, but we have many of those in our portfolio. I've been there. I did 2 startup businesses that I grew and sold, and one that I bought and grew and sold. So I have a sense of the frustration and the sleepless nights that you go through. But it's that tenacity that's the critical piece of building that resilience. Second to, as she said, planning. In this day and age with things changing, companies that have a supplier have to find other suppliers just in case that supplier goes under. So you've got to start planning ahead for things by thinking about what happens if this happens, what happens if this happens, and what over here. What if my customers decide that there's something I'm doing they don't like? You've got to do a lot of work with customer surveys. Look at the market. Do some market research to understand what other markets you might be able to go into with your product. So it's all of that. It's not easy. It's I'm going to say it's nuts right now, but tenacity is the key. Being willing to spend that time and go through all of the things that you go through, but building it and climbing up that ladder.
As you're talking, there's a hashtag, Small Business Workshop. Please feel free to drop your comments, and you know, you can also follow me. My handle is Lee Group. That's at Lee Group, and just share out these messages, these nuggets they're sharing with you. We'll make sure we retweet them as well. Tamara?
Yeah, I was going to bring up a thought too. Lenders, believe it or not, especially CDFIs, love to hear stories like that. Like, we're not afraid to see a negative net loss in the first couple years. In fact, we expect it. You know, we expect to see things like that. Michigan Women Forward, here's a fun fact, 60% of our portfolio is startup. And so because of that, you know, we know what happens the first couple years. We know that the first couple years there's a lot of expenses that are being purchased that, you know, are happening because of a startup. And those expenses won't happen again, you know. And so as a result, we know what's happening on the balance sheet. We know what's happening with profit and loss. And so we're used to seeing it. I think at times, especially coming out of COVID, there was a lot of FOMO that was going around in terms of entrepreneurs. No offense to anyone in here, because it's not anyone in here, but just saying, you know, that there were entrepreneurs that felt like they were missing out on, you know, grant opportunities, and just almost thinking to an extent that grants are a way to fund the business, when in all actuality, you know, not necessarily. You know, that's icing on the cake, without a doubt. But to the extent that that is the way to fund the business, you know, that's not necessarily the model. And so truly, you know, what the lender looks at is to see, you know, what do you have the patience to see this business model through. And so, you know, after all it's said and done, you know, do you have the grit and the tenacity, no matter what, you know, before a person that doesn't even have their DNA, you know, in the business can put their funds in the game, you know, is your skin in the game. And so, you know, stories like that are the ones that would allow a lender to say without a shadow of a doubt, absolutely 100%, we will certainly cut a check. So,
I love what you just said,
Yeah.
grit and tenacity.
Yep.
Grit and tenacity. And as we talk about resilient by design, let's talk about disruption. We've been spending a lot of time so far this morning, at least I have, talking about disruption. What types of disruption are you noticing now in today's economic environment that's being experienced by small businesses, and how are they navigating those disruptions?
It's interesting because it's not necessarily customer demand. The disruptions that we're starting to see have more to do, obviously, with, like, you know, economic climate. It has a lot to do with, and you'll probably hear this theme a lot throughout the day, just an overall preparedness, you know, of our entrepreneurs. Cannot underscore this enough. It's a wonderful time to just make sure that we prepare ourselves so that this would be the one time, you know, that, you know, this would be the one time to take a look at, you know, your credit, rip the Band-Aid off, no matter what it looks like, you know, just to make sure that you can put yourself in a position to be loan ready. We don't necessarily use a credit score as a proxy, but at the same time, it doesn't hurt. You know, it doesn't hurt because it shows character and how you repay things. Another thing to take a look at is just to make sure that along the way you're starting to put money away in reserves. Reason why is because if you're able to, on the personal side, put money away, you can certainly do that on the business side too. Those are some really great habits to take a look at either way. The other thing that I'll mention too is if you don't need to use a lender right now, excellent. It's a great time to meet a lender because that way you'll have a great working relationship with one when it's time to use one. So those are other things that we're seeing currently, is that it may not necessarily be the time that you need one, and which is a wonderful time to meet somebody that you can start a relationship with, because I know that a lot of us are using AI. It's certainly great as it relates to cutting down on a lot of time, but there's that human component that it misses out on, and we're touchy-feely kind of people. Our loans are decisioned by a committee, and as a result, you know, there's this human component that just likes to see businesses succeed, and so because of that, it's just nice to know people. And that's more than what AI could ever deliver. So, you know, may as well just meet a few people today and just let those relationships take you along the way. So.
And I certainly agree with that. The one thing that we're seeing that I think many small businesses aren't thinking through, we had a meeting of all the Detroit CDFIs about 4 weeks ago to talk about where we are, what's going on in the community. And we found an interesting statistic. You all see the loans now on LinkedIn. You can get a loan in 24 hours. You can get it to you tomorrow. Here's the problem. 70% of the loans that were made over the last 60 days were predatory loans from predatory lenders with interest rates at 20, 25 and higher. If you're a small business, it's okay to get a loan, but I'm telling you, getting one of those loans can be more of a disaster than it can be helpful. So it's planning on small businesses' part that is the critical piece. Planning what you're doing, planning ahead, and taking the time to think through that. But when I heard that, 70%, I thought, my goodness, it's really difficult out there because you need the money. But we're trying to speed up our process, as you are, and everybody is. So try to work through it with a local lender who you know, who, if you need help down the road, or you need to restructure your loan, will be able to say, yes, we can do this if you can do such things. critical piece of growing your business is having that flexibility.
Yeah, we have about 5 minutes or so. And Martha, I want to come back over to you and talk about disruption from your perspective. What have you learned from it? You had a lot of disruption starting your business. You kind of talked about it. So what has disruption taught you about yourself, about your business, and also about your leadership ability?
To adapt and to think out of the box, because when you have as a small business owner, being a small business owner is a roller coaster. It's like being in a roller coaster. Sometimes everything goes very well, and sometimes everything just goes down. So, in my experience, for example, last year, I had to change everything that I was doing because of the climate, not only the economy, but also most of my clients are engineers, lawyers, professionals that the big companies brings to Michigan. So a lot of them, unfortunately, they were not able to renew their permit to be here. So a lot of people were coming back to Mexico. And for me and my business, that was like a catastrophic. So I had to adapt, to think out of the box and see how can I change my business so I can keep my business my business from going down, and to keep with making money, because I'm the sole provider of my home. My kids are they are full-time college students, and my younger, she is graduating. She's gonna graduate from high school this month. So I need to adapt. That's what I need to do. I need to adapt. So I changed my business, the way how I was doing. I took some service out of the picture and focus more in the services and products that were going to bring me more clients.
Okay. So as we wrap up, first of all, congratulations. You just had a daughter who graduated from Michigan State, I believe. Is that right?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is awesome. How many of us are afraid of technology? How many of us use AI on a regular basis? Okay, interesting. So my last question is very simple. It's focused on the emergence of technology. Talk about the impact of the emergence of technology in terms of trends. What other trends are you noticing? Is it just technology, other trends in the marketplace that these people should be made aware of as we wrap up? Technology, as an example, the emergence of technology. What other trends are you noticing? Is technology the biggest one, or are there other trends out there that these business owners should be aware of?
Just from what we're seeing on the lender side, we're seeing a lot of entrepreneurs that are using AI to develop business plans, a lot of financial projections, which is certainly okay. Make sure though that you refine those, with your own, make sure you do your own haircuts, and base it.
I need a haircut? You say I need a haircut? Is that what you said?
No, but just make sure that you make it relatable, because it has to make sense especially if you're looking for financing or capital, because it only makes sense to a certain extent. I'll just offer that piece of information. So it certainly saves time, but then remember that you do have to use it for your particular business. So there's a balance between saving time and having it make sense for the particular business as well.
Briefly, Martha and Ray, would you address anything?
Technology, I don't know much about it. I'm too old. But she's absolutely right. We see a lot of it now with our customers coming, trying to do business plans and doing all of that. But, and I think that's really helpful because it can get it done more quickly in the financials. But please be sure that you understand that you understand what you're doing, your business plan and all of that, that you can listen to what the AI says, but you've got to really understand it and put in what you really think is going to happen. I'm going to end, Mark didn't ask this, but I'm going to end real quickly. We do what we do because we want to see companies be successful. And the most important thing that you need to understand here is it can be done. Whether you use AI, whatever you're doing, you can be successful. Two of our loan customers that I talk about real quick. Carla Walker-Miller came to us years ago, about 15 years ago, needed a small loan. We gave it to her. She was well prepared. Carla's doing $200 million in sales last year. Unbelievable. The lip bar, Melissa Butler, came to us and we financed a lipstick truck for her. She drove around in that truck. Today she's all over the country doing an incredible job. So my point is it can be done, but you have to have the tenacity. You have to be technology and use it smart. But if you don't have that, go after it. You're not going to get there. Thank you.
And what I want to do is, Martha, start with you in 10 seconds or less. Give one practical advice to this group that they can walk with today based on your experience. What should they do walking away? One piece of practical advice in 10 seconds or less.
Related to technology or?
Anything you want to share with them.
Okay. I think that not letting the fear stopping you from doing something. Because as an entrepreneur, personally, there have been sometimes that I've been afraid to do something and say, what if this doesn't work? What if I lose money? What I gonna do with this if this is not a good choice? And a few times that fear stopped me to do what I wanted to do, and then I regret it. So I live my life saying, and it's the same thing that I told my kids, don't stop the fear don't let the fear stop you for doing something. It's better to say, okay, this didn't work, but I did it. I tried it. Actually, I tried something a month ago. I've been for 2 years wanting to buy a building for my business, and I did it.
Awesome. Thank you. So don't let fear stopping you.
I'm really afraid. I'm scared, but
Take that, Ray.
I'm gonna make it work.
All right. Ray, 10 seconds or left. One piece of advice. What's the matter?
Meet everybody, meet as many people as you can in here today before you leave. And then the other thing that I'll say is nobody can know your business or operate your business like you can. So just rock it out for sure, seriously. And then the final thing that I'll say is if you are really tired of hearing the word no, then you are onto something. You really are. You're almost there.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Tamara, Ray, do you want a final word?
No, I think it's just what I said earlier. You've got to be very judicious in your planning and your alternatives. Know what could happen, and there's an alternative way to do it in your marketing, reaching out to new people with your product, but the planning part of it and the resiliency, and you've got to be able to change sometimes these days in a minute to do things. And so planning ahead is the critical piece, knowing what some alternatives might be. If this happens, what am I going to do? If this happens, what am I going to do? And talk to people. There's a lot of help out there. There's a lot of people and organizations, nonprofits, that will help you do things with the county, with various things. Take advantage of what's in this marketplace in Detroit. What the city is doing is incredible with some of the programs there. Take advantage of it. It's all online. You can find it, and don't hesitate to do it.
All right, I couldn't say it better. Let's give them a round of applause, please. Tamara Jackson-Gatewood, Ray Waters, and Martha Rosales, thank you very much. We appreciate you. All right. As we segue, we're going to have another conversation, a fireside chat with two business leaders from across the city here. And I hope that you, again, take notes. And I think Tamara makes a good point, Ray makes a good point, Martha makes a good point. Meet as many people as possible, not even just today, but moving forward. So our next conversation focuses on growth, and not just growth for growth's sake. We're talking about responsible growth, trusted growth, inclusive growth, and systems that help move forward with confidence. Please welcome Lisa Frohnapfel, did I get it right? Getting there, of BBB of Michigan. She's the president and CEO of Better Business Bureau of Michigan, and Vince Pierson, who's the chief operating officer of the Michigan Black Business Alliance. And together, Lisa and Vincent will have an important perspective on trust, credibility, access, advocacy, and what it takes to build a stronger small business ecosystem. Please welcome Lisa and Vince. All right, you guys got the microphones? Y'all ready to rock and roll? Again, casual conversation as we continue. So Lisa and Vince, what are you both hearing most about from small businesses and nonprofits as it relates to growth in this economic environment? What are you hearing from small businesses in general?
The idea of resilient by design in super layman terms is, are you aware of and mindful and tending to your systems and the operations and how your business actually does? You can take the bait of doing really well and assuming that, okay, my business is prepared for growth, or perhaps because money comes in, that means my systems are doing well. But really doing an audit and understanding exactly to Lisa's point, how we get from A to B to C for every single function of my business, whether it is how we bring people in, where are we even finding the people that we're bringing in, our supply chains, especially, obviously in the economy now, just being mindful of your systems and being sure as you approach growth, almost growth being a byproduct of the systems operating well rather than trying to grow and then fixing those systems to match whatever that growth may have been.
So let me ask the audience at large, how many of you are feeling disrupted today by today's economy? You're feeling disrupted. I want one person to raise your hand and just tell me how. What is that disruption from your perspective? Anybody? What is that disruption? What are you feeling? The unknown, defined as the unknown. All right, one other person. What disruption are you seeing or confronting or dealing with every day right now? Gas prices? Cost? Right? Talent? What I'm getting at with that question is there some type of disruption? And you both did a wonderful job of defining resilient by design. So talk about this disruption. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a small business, all of a sudden my Apple Card has been upset. How do I negotiate or handle this disruption in the marketplace?
I think you gotta go back to your gut, go back to your roots, go back to why you started your business. For myself, I grew up with not a lot at all. My dad worked for milling companies. Lost everything at one point in time and then had to rebuild. And it was watching him with that grit and that gut instinct. You've got to trust your relationships and pull upon those. When you have times, I remember back in my day working at Credit Union World, because before I was within the BBB world, I was a press banker and credit union person. And when we really struggled, because I worked for some really small credit unions and some that were very large, those relationships that you have, whether it's a vendor, whether it's a partner in crime, whether it's a colleague, whether it's a competitor, it's looking at every challenge with a different lens and saying it's an opportunity. And leaning into those people and those resources and saying, what can I do to help myself? And I'm going to give a couple of examples. So one was, we were a very, very small community credit union. And back in that day, you could only have one credit union that served the entire community. And I kept thinking to myself, how can we help more people? And so what we did is we said, we're going to go and have every neighborhood association become available for membership for us. And then we started tackling it from a different way. But taking a different lens when you're looking at those opportunities and taking a pause. I think sometimes when we get into moments of stress, you can even see it as a leader and as a business owner. Your entire team, your customers, your client base, they're watching you. You live in a fishbowl, right? Their pulse is off of you. So if I get fired up about something in my office and I go raging around, my team is going to sit there and start freaking out. They're going to start stressing. They're going to start being like, what is going on? She's all feathered up. Take that calmness and start thinking in an innovative way of how you can champion those relationships. Plus, dig into your business and say, what are areas of revenue and or expense reduction that I'm not thinking of? When I first came to so many organizations that I had, you want to know the first thing I started looking at? Postage and mailing. How much am I spending on stuff that adds no value whatsoever or I inherited? And then also looking at those revenue streams and those relationships, your customer base, and saying, I need to listen to them. And when those challenges come up of where there's something that goes wrong, lean into those opportunities to build the trust in a relationship potential to build your business. Too many small business owners think a complaint is a bad thing. Complaint is not a bad thing. A complaint is a gift. It's an opportunity that you just got to re-solidify a relationship with somebody, and now I have a relationship. They're going to trust me. They're going to know I'm going to handle it right. And those are some key things that I think are really monumental.
So I'm hearing innovation, trust, relationships. And Vince, let's see, you're with the MBBA and primarily focused on the black businesses in the city and beyond. Talk about the disruption. Again, I'm not getting into it, guys, I'm not getting into a whole political conversation. We're not going there, okay? But we know the environment that we're in.
Yeah.
From a business perspective, nonprofits are getting hit. I've had people, someone call me yesterday, asking for some advice and counsel on how do they navigate these certain challenges we're going through. So talk about the different types of disruptions being experienced by black businesses, and what are you telling them?
I think that it's very similar to what Lisa mentioned. I did a workshop yesterday with a group of high school student athletes. I grew up in the sports and entertainment space, so continue to invest in youth in sports.
Is that why you have such a good personality?
Is that
Yeah,
maybe?
is that it?
I appreciate that. I guess my personality didn't scream bank. I can appreciate that. No, but we were able to leverage Coach Kara Lawson. She's the women's basketball coach at Duke University, and she has she was speaking to her athletes, and she talked about handling hard better. It's like the idea that easy is around the corner, or we just hang in there until things get easier. When we talked to our student athletes and we told them, like, that's not it. You know, you get better at handling challenges, whether it's to your mental health, whether it's on the court, whether it's an injury, whatever it is, you get a little better at handling hard, and when it gets harder, you've got a little training. And I don't think it applies any differently in this space. The idea, I think Ray mentioned in the previous conversation, disruption is no longer periodic or this thing that happens occasionally. Disruption is the standard. Once we survive this one, the next one's waiting around the corner for us. So the idea isn't simply how we get through disruption, or even so much define it as how are we handling it in a way that allows us to grow more resilient, so that we're prepared, because there's only more coming. Yeah. But when we think about specifically, I think one of the challenges that I've heard in a couple of different conversations in our community is how do we find ourselves so siloed. right? I think when you're in position and you're wearing the label of a black-owned business, the perception becomes is that you're serving the black community only, right? And that the only customers that should are black, and it's like that was never the idea. You know, we create experiences, atmospheres, products that the entire community, the world can benefit from, and we've heard many examples already of companies who've done just that. But oftentimes when you start, and especially if you're bold enough to lean into it, then the clientele that you attract, the people who take you seriously are from the same community as you. So I think that's something that we almost need to disrupt, not just in the community, but even in this very room, to be mindful that we don't hear black-owned business, and if you don't identify with that, to say, oh, that's not for me. I wish them the best of luck as they go do that. No, we're all in this small business community together, and we should be mindful of that.
And Mark, can I add one thing to that?
Absolutely.
So, as I've come through my career, it has been one of those things of where, as a leader, you can't predict everything. And there's going to be opportunities that present themselves, and you're like, holy wow, I'm not ready for that. I don't have the staff, I don't have this, whatever it is. Champion the relationships that you have and seize those moments. And you define the narrative. So when we hear the word disruption, it's just like I say about a complaint. Disruption is not bad, that's your moment. Shine, lean into it, and find what makes you strong and different compared to your competitors. And I think that's what is so great about the work that we do, and that I'm really proud of, is we lean into the fact of helping protect all of you, the small business owners, from the people that aren't doing it right and have they make a bad reputation for you. And so lean into what you do really well. And you're innovative, you are creative, and you have those relationships. And when you go to have an opportunity with somebody, you might start talking to them and have no idea that they're going to springboard something for you.
You know, I want to pick up on something you just said. BBB of Michigan clearly focused on trust and ethics, and talk about the importance, as we talk about this disruption, talk about the importance of what BBB of Michigan is doing in that space of trust. You mentioned it several times. Talk about the importance of trust.
Thank you. If you look on your tables, there's a brochure for our AI Summit. One of the things that we are very passionate about right now is how do we help all of our businesses, big and small, because a lot of the big businesses think they got it all figured out, right? And you walk in and you call on the phone and you have some bot that you're talking to and you're like, get me a person, get me a human. And you go mad trying to go through the system, right? What we're really focusing on is how can you use AI and technology to help protect your business, number one, take the sludge out of your work, that is the stuff you don't want to be doing anyways, and automate those types of things with checks and balances, because you don't ever take the human element out, and you utilize the AI to help strengthen the soul of your business. And what we're here for is we're here to help you maneuver through that in an ethical way. Because so often right now, there are a lot of businesses and a lot of individuals that they're not utilizing AI for you the best that you possibly can. And if you think right now that I'm not using AI, I'm freaking out. How many people in here think that there's going to be robots roaming around here real soon? It's common. And you're going to be talking to your computer instead of typing. And the thing is that is not a bad thing. How many of you remember typing a DOS program? Trying to make a little frog go across the computer screen? This is no different. Come on. It's no different than the internet. We don't need to freak out. But we need to use it the right way, and we have to have an infrastructure within our business. Even if you don't use it, when you have employees come on board, they're going to be using it. And you want to make sure that they're not going to ruin your reputation, because they're going to plug something into AI and be like, oh my gosh, I'm a genius. I just figured this out. And you do a shot in the dark and you're like, that makes no sense whatsoever, and you just mess it all up. Because you're using your mind, you're using the soul. And so for us right now, that technology, that infrastructure for us within the VBB, that's how we've reinvented ourselves to be relevant. And every turn of a page that happens, that's why we've been around for over 100 and some years. We're the original one that's out there. We vet the businesses, and we are the #1 to the #3 resource that AI utilizes to grab information when you're searching out something. And that reason is because we vet you. And if you are out there and you're doing the grind and you're trying to do things and stand out across from your competitors, we have so many different resources to help you know how you are going to stand out in the age of AI. We have classes, we have consulting, we have a summit that we're doing. Take advantage of it, because it's a huge benefit for you.
As we begin to wrap up, before I go back to Vince, I do want to ask one question. How many of you are now using AI as part of your business? I said, okay, very good. You know, on a point of a personal note, one of the things I'm proud of myself, I mentioned I have intellectual curiosity. And I'm not a technologist, but one of the things I've learned to do over the last several years, and we're going to talk about cybersecurity a little bit later, but I am so proud of myself. I'm a more mature person. My kids are adults now. Yes, believe it or not, I do have my itty-bitty grandkids, right? And my grandson grabbed my phone when he was in town the other day and started punching stuff into my phone. I had no idea what the heck he was doing. And he was explaining to me what he was doing. And he's 7 years old. 7 years old. So I say that to say, and I want to come over to you now, Vince, because I want to take this disruption. I'm using my example of technology. I've continued to embrace it. And it's really helped me. So how do we take, and I will come back to you, Lisa, to wrap up, is how do we take these disruptions, whether it's technology or anything you hear from your clients or your customers, and turn them into opportunities?
I think the key is really something that Lisa's mentioned is leaning in. And a lot of the stories that we've heard, whether it was Mark and the bank account, you know, under zero. My own nonprofit this year is the Black Sports Business Academy. We support HBCU students who want to work in sports. I'm not doing a cohort this year. But I'm leaning into that experience and taking it as an opportunity to hear more from our network, hear more from our students, learn more about what we could and should be doing at this point in our history. It's just leaning into whatever the moment presents you as opportunity, and not letting the disruption be painted, again, Lisa's example of don't let it define the moment. You get to define. It's disruption because I no longer get to do a cohort. And I was sad about that right up until I sent the email about not doing a cohort, and then I felt free. I was like, oh, I don't have to do a cohort anymore. Like, that's 14 weeks of my life I get back. That's so exciting. But I then also get to say, ooh, what do we do in place of that? You know, so it's seeing the disruption as opportunity. And I think one of the opportunities, and if I heard correctly, I want to, you know, provide kind of the what can I do in this moment, is the idea of auditing everything. Audit the relationships, personal and professional. Are these strategic partners actually elevating what we're doing? Are we collaborating in the best ways? Are my personal relationships, and we talked to this with our students again yesterday, if you have the goal of elevating your business, do the people that you're surrounding yourself with support that goal? I was talking to one of our members a few weeks ago, and she's grown her child care business to over $800,000 gross in a year. And I was talking, I just asked, how'd you start? And she said, I talked about it for so long that my husband finally said, just do it.
All right.
Yeah.
You know, and so one kid at her home has now grown into, you know, she'll be opening another facility here in Detroit at the end of the summer. But the idea of auditing your financial analysis, at NBBA right now, we're very heavily auditing everything we do financially, cash flow, accounts receivables, partners, contracts, how we get our programs done. We're looking at everything through and through, because disruption has caused us to pause and really take a look at the whole operation. And really leaning into that experience and learning something from it so that we prepare ourselves to handle hard better for the next time. So I think that's the biggest thing, is really just leaning into disruption. Don't shy away from it. You know, we'll show up here next year and we get to do this again, and it'll be a different title, but it's still going to be something that's disrupted what we were doing at this time, last year. So
I would say with Vince, we were actually at a Tiger game not too long ago, and we would talk about disruption.
Yeah.
And he shared with me in the middle of a baseball game before all the Tigers got hurt, right? But we were in the concourse, and he was sharing with me this exact same conversations. No matter where we are, we're having this conversation. Lisa, I want to give you the final word.
Yeah.
Is how do you turn this into opportunity?
How do I what?
How do you turn disruption into opportunity?
You take a pause and you really take a moment to assess, and you become the stabilizer. A great example, I know you're wrapping, but when you go ahead and you think about your business, how many of you in this room sit there and you hear of a younger kid coming through the ranks and they're doing a job and you're like, what the heck? I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, what? Like, where was that opportunity when I was younger? And what I would say is, I go back to an example about my dad. When he ran a milling company, he came over to one that's in Augusta, Michigan, okay? I'm a Michigan girl through and through. I'm not from Detroit, but I'm a Michigan girl.
We've adopted you.
Yeah. But the thing is that he went ahead and he worked for a milling company, and they weren't doing very well. Basically, what ended up happening is the farmers would bring the raw product in, and then they would sell that raw product to Kellogg or Post, right? For cereal, for crackers, whatever. Well, they had a ton of waste by the time that they were done. This man went ahead and started thinking about all the components of the waste. He ended up selling and starting a whole new business line of where they sold part of the runoff to the dog food companies, Purina, right there in Battle Creek, and then he sold another part of it to the paper companies. There was no waste left. He designed the equipment for it, and that created total revenue streams that no one would have thought about before. But what I would say with that disruption is, find ways within your team and within yourself that you can utilize AI to help you think out of the box, but you can create that space with your teams and not be afraid of it. A lot of times when I was coming through the ranks, people would be like, oh, we already tried that. We already tried that, right? Or you poo-poo something because you're like, we don't have the money for that. We have that all the time because we're a nonprofit. All the time. But that's when I lean in and I say, but who do I know? I know Mark. Mark knows such and such, such and such, such and such. Hey, can I go to lunch with you? I'm struggling with an issue. Or our businesses are struggling with this. What can we do to help champion? How can we help them? Just like working with, you're going to talk to Watchdog Cyber here in a little bit. Wonderful resource that we found that is out there to help you with cybersecurity. Because with AI and everything else, you got to find a way to protect yourself because you're opening the gates. And so I would just say, lean into the things you don't know and get excited about it, but you got to create the space for it and let some things just fly around the room.
Let's give them a round of applause, and I mean a loud round of applause, please, for Lisa and Vince, and also to our panelists as well. I want to thank you both. I want to thank our panelists this morning so far. Are you learning anything thus far? Helpful? All right. Thank you. So what we're going to do is to take a real quick break here. It's a time to connect, to refresh, talk to someone, meet someone new, visit with each other. And when we come back, we're going to continue the conversations with our good friends from ZBART, and they're going to share with us their perspective as well. So thank you very much. Relax, have some food, and we'll meet back up here in 15 minutes. 15 minutes.